Hello and thank you for joining me today. Well, this is the Friday, March the 6th edition of our video devotionals. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hope your Friday's going well. It is the end of the work week, end of the school week, and it's the beginning of the weekend. And for us here, man, unbelievable warmth. In fact, I think either close to or record-breaking warmth for us. But, spring's trying to rush in, and we've definitely had our winter this year, as we say. But hopefully you can have a great weekend, great Sunday. Of course, continue to pray for our countries. We're engaged in this war with Iran. Of course, Israel, kind of a collateral war there against them. There's a lot of things going on, but just be in prayer for that. Also, ask you to pray for a man that's his wife attends our church, and his son, and he's in a position now where the Lord may take him today. I was just at the hospital prior to doing this video. We won't give out the names, but it's a gentleman that unless the Lord intervenes and does something supernatural, he's not going to be with us much longer. But his wife has been there by his side, and she works a regular job. She's not been able to do that. Pray for her, the son, of course, the family. They're all coming in. And if you could pray for him, I know they would appreciate that, even though they won't know who you are. But if you'll pray for them, I know they would appreciate it. All right, so we're going to be in Mark chapter 11, the very last part of the chapter. We'll start in verse 27, read down to verse 33. We'll read that, give you something here very simple and yet profound, because the profundity of it is because it's the Word of God, and this is what God had designed to give all generations of all things that could be said and could be placed in the Bible. Here are the events and stories and principles and so on. So notice what it says here in verse 27. And they come again to Jerusalem, and as he was walking in the temple, there come to him the chief priests and the scribes and the elders, and saying to him, By what authority doest thou these things? And who gave thee this authority to do these things? And Jesus answered and said unto them, I will also ask of you one question, and answer me, and I will tell you by what authority I do these things. The baptism of John, was it from heaven or of men? Answer me. And they reasoned with themselves, saying, If we shall say from heaven, he will say, Why then did ye not believe him? But if we shall say of men, they feared the people, for all men counted John, that he was a prophet indeed. And last verse 33. And they answered and said unto Jesus, We cannot tell. And Jesus answering saith unto them, Neither do I tell you by what authority I do these things. In life there is there's certain things just kind of broken down to this or that scenario. In this case, the Lord's asking these men that are saying, you do all these things, by what authority do you do these things? Then he asks them a question about John the Baptist. And he says, was it from heaven or of men? And to be honest with you, there's where everything lies. Look, and of course they started talking amongst themselves. They reasoned among themselves, and their conclusion is, if we say of heaven, then he's going to say, well, why didn't you believe him? If it's from heaven, that's why all of us should believe whatever it is, because from heaven means of God. And then he says, if we say of men, they feared what the people would do to them, and what a situation to decide in life what you're going to do. If it's of heaven, then of course that should be always our decision, because it's of God. But what about if our decisions are strictly based upon the fact that we do what we do, and if we don't say it just right, we fear people. In other words, our decisions are based on what other people think. We'll just put it down to that. The truth is, it comes down to, is it of heaven or is it of men? And I'll even break it down to this: the things we do at church, the things certainly we believe, but the mannerisms, the practices that we do, is that of heaven or is it of men? And do we do what we do because we're afraid not to do it, because we're afraid of what someone might say, in our case, and in some cases it might be because of what somebody would do. So the truth is, it's like me. I'll just put it like this. I preach the Bible because I believe it's of heaven, it's of God, and not of men. And therefore, I don't not preach because I say to myself, well, if I say this or I say that, then, I fear the people's response. I fear the people's rejection or acceptance. So when it gets down to it, do what you do because it is of heaven, it is of God, and not because it's of men. Because when we start doing things because it's of men, then we're not doing the things because it is of heaven, and that certainly is a problem. So, hope you have a great day, safe day, healthy day, great weekend, great Sunday. Lord willing, we'll be back on Monday. Thank you for watching and have a great day.